13:7. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We dedicate the service tonight to the memory of our pastor, but we didn't want it to be vain repetition. We wanted to really be conscious of what he meant to you, maybe when you met him for the first time, or some lasting memory that you have of him. So we're going to open it up, but we really didn't want it to be vain repetition. Just coming up and just saying this thing, but be thoughtful. Be very thoughtful. We're recording this for historical sake. We're going to open it up at this time to the congregation, what Pastor Hampton meant to you, or perhaps when you met him, or your lasting memory. May God bless the saints.
Maybe I should have stayed up there. I would just like to share how valuable a pastor like Pastor Hampton is to me because of the truth that he stood for and endorsed, regardless. As many of you know, I grew up in a church of God, and I witnessed a lot of things going down, and a lot of compromise, a lot of problems. Used to go to camp meeting in Ohio and saw utter decay, enemy coming in and just corrupting, the world coming in, and just all kind of things that I began to say to myself, the saints aren't being the saints. And my mother said, well, how can you call them the saints if they're not being the saints? But I began to seek God on my own, asking the Lord to show me truth, show me. I knew what was truth, but there was some confusion over doctrine. And I asked the Lord to show me what was right. But I began to sense in my spirit that I needed something more. But I don't want to take up a lot of time here. I'm trying to make this short. I do want to point out that years ago, when I was in my early teens and I was saved, there was a sister from our congregation who had moved to California. And she got in touch with the Church of God out in California, I think with Sister Clemstein and some of the other saints out there. Her name was Rita. And Rita wrote me after she moved there. And she told me, she said, Dorinda, I want you to realize that there has been a split in the church. And that the pastor that you're under, Brother Pletcher, she said, he's not teaching what he should be teaching. And I want you to get in touch with this minister in Jackson, Michigan. His name is Pastor Frank Hampton. She said, contact him. He'll be true to your soul. And I thought, what is she talking about? I was too young when all this stuff was happening that I didn't understand it. So I wrote her back, and it was the last correspondence we actually had. And I told her, I said, listen, whoever this person is, they split away from us. They got the problem, not us. This is the way I was feeling as a young person. I said, so whoever this Brother Hampton is, I don't care to meet him. That was what I remember writing to her. And for years, I never knew him. In fact, at one time, they used to come to our revival meetings. Brother Charles, Sister Robin, they remember coming to the revivals that we used to have down in Niles, Michigan. But I didn't recognize them because Brother Hampton was a quiet person. I never heard from him. We would see Chicago folks. We knew Pastor Gordon. We knew, all these people. But when Brother Hampton came, it was just a small group, and they never got up and sang. They didn't do anything that I can recall. So I didn't know who they were. But as I was seeking God in 1980, and God opened my eyes to the truth of sanctification, and I began to want to stand for divine healing, and I wasn't seeing it practiced. And I thought, God, they're letting this thing go, and it was concerning me. When Sister Green contacted me and asked me to start praying with her, we went to separate congregations, but we knew each other, and we started praying together. And then she said to me one day, I want you to come to me to Jackson. She said, I promised Pastor Hampton I'm going to come and visit. So I came with Sister Green to Jackson on a Tuesday night. They had a special service. We came here, and that night there was a lot of shouting going on, and I'd seen a lot of shouting, but it was a little different. I thought, I don't know about this, you know. And I talked with Pastor Hampton afterwards. I said, you know, what's the meaning of all this confusion? And I found out that he knew my mother years ago. They actually used to sing together, you know. And I thought, well, how come I never knew about this man? But Sister Green said, I want to come back. Will you come with me? So I said, okay, I'll come back. And I remember the first message. I think it's the first message I ever heard Brother Hampton preach. If it's not, it's definitely the one that registered with me, the first one. And that message was called Pray Without Ceasing. And he said in that message, when's the last time you ever spent an hour in prayer? When's the last time you ever spent 2 hours in prayer? And I thought, oh, I've never done that. And he gave me a challenge. I made up in my mind, I'm going to start spending. I've got some evenings when the rest of the family goes to basketball games and they go do their thing and I'm home alone. I said, you know what? I'm going to start praying. I'm going to start spending an hour in prayer. I'm going to start spending 2 hours in prayer. And as a little 17-year-old girl, I started digging into God and spending time in prayer and fasting. And based on that message and the inspiration of that particular message, I began to give myself to prayer. And the more I prayed, the more God began to open up this truth to me. And of course, some of you remember back in 1981, January, Sister Green and I were coming here on a Tuesday night. No, I think it was a Sunday night. Can't quite remember now. We were in a terrible car accident. And I felt like I have to get to Jackson. Got to get there. I got to declare that God has shown me so much about this truth. I want to declare my stand. And when we got in that accident, totaled the car and everything, and I'm bandaged up. And the ambulance people asked me, do you want to go to the hospital? I'm like, no, I want to get to Jackson. Because I know my mom probably not going to let me come back now. But if I can get there and declare my stand, I'm in a war against the devil, you know? And so Sister Green said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go to Jackson. Brother Hampton told her, he said, if you get a cab and you get here, we will pay for it.
Wow.
We got a cab, and we came all the way to Jackson. And some of the saints took us home later that night. But just being here, the service was almost over. They were ready to dismiss. But they started the service again. Brother Hampton called me up, called all of us up so he could pray for us, Sister Green, Sister Pat, and myself. And I'm the only one that's bandaged up, so it's just strange how he put me last, you know. He prayed for them, and then I remember him standing up kind of elevated, and I'm standing down waiting for them to pray for me. They anointed me, and Brother Hampton was so intense when he went to pray for me. It kind of reminded me of what Brother Bruce said about Sister Butler. He just like put his hands on me, and it was like he just pressed, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you know. But he was just God, you know, getting a hold of God for me. At that point, you know, I have a scar here from that accident. But I also had a cut on the inside where my teeth went through. And when I got home, I felt the prayer of faith was prayed. I felt God let me get here, declare that I'm standing, and I didn't care about the scars and whatever. I was interested in my soul. And so when we went home, my mother said, you know, you're definitely going to have stitches. And you can never go back there, you know. But I believed the prayer of faith was prayed. And when I went to the doctor, he said, oh, you don't need stitches. The inside, overnight, it healed up. And it was just a scar on the outside. I said, this divine healing is real. It's real. And nevertheless, you know, I couldn't come, but saints, I was praying. See, Brother Hampton already taught me to pray. okay? So I was praying. He would constantly ask Sister Green, how she's doing, how's she doing? Sister Green said, Brother Hampton, I want you to call him. He's real interested in you. And I'm like, what am I supposed to say? I don't know what to call him and say, you know. But he had already given me the word. I was praying. I was fasting. I was seeking God until God arrested me one Saturday night and told me I was in prayer, asking God to help me the next day when I go to church so I don't get discouraged where I was. And that's when the Lord told me, come out from among them and be ye separate. And I said, okay, Lord, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I don't care if it's go to Africa, Egypt, wherever. Lord, this is what sacrifice is all about. This is what sanctification is all about. And so I just didn't tell anyone. And I went on, and finally a couple of days later, I asked God to confirm it. And he gave me that scripture in Revelations that said, come out of her, my people. Brother Hampton kept telling Sister Green, tell her to call me. So I called. I said, Brother Hampton, God has shown me that I got to make a stand. I got to take a stand. He was so happy. He said, sister, do what the Lord tells you to do. And saints, you know, it's been rough. It's been rough these 37 years. But one thing I could say, the week after I came here, we had a crisis situation with the little Wilson baby. God came through just like that for the saints. Confirmed sanctification, confirmed divine healing. I was so happy, so settled, and I've had trouble ever since from opposition from other places. But I thank God for this truth. The fact that he held it, he stood for it, he never deviated. And though people didn't like it, they didn't understand maybe all the time why he did things the way he did and why he, didn't do what they thought he should do, whatever. But one thing that has gotten to me, sometimes you cannot satisfy people. You cannot, I've learned, you cannot always explain to people what God has shown you. But thank God, Brother Hampton stood. He wouldn't let anybody move him. And that's my determination by the grace of God to live so that nobody moves me.
Good evening, saints. My name is Juanita Jones. I just want to thank the Lord for my salvation. I thank God for being up under Brother Hampton's ministry. I got saved in 95, and I recall coming to my first fellowship meeting here in 96, and Brother Hampton had talked to me and my older children's father, because we were just, deciding on marriage or whatever, but he wasn't saved. So anyway, he gave us that counsel, and that was my first contact with him. And then in 2002, I moved here. And for about a year, that's when I kind of got familiar with the Hampton family. I started to help Sister Hampton clean up her home and, help take care of her or whatever when she was getting down. And that's how I came in contact with the Hampton family. And I just want to thank God how, being there, I would see the children come in and out and, care for their mom. And then Brother Hampton, I remember some mornings I would be there and he would, go to her and snuggle up against her. And I just saw that love there. And then I took her to therapy a couple of times, and I recall this one incident where, who was it? I think it was Johnny or Basil, one of them. But they, from her wheelchair, they just gracefully picked her up and put her in my vehicle. And I was thinking to myself, that's what I want my sons to do for me, But I was thinking also, but I can't be heavy when, doing that. You got to, be a nice size or whatever. But anyway, I was just thanking God for, from that time up until this very moment, I love the Hampton family. I love Brother Hampton, and I thank God how he's always looked after, after me. He would, tell me certain things. I think he was kind of impressed that I was able to cut hair, you know, because I cut my son's hair, I cut my husband's hair, and I think I impressed him a lot too, because of course he's a barber. But I just want to thank God how, you know, even recently he was looking out for me, you know, because I thank God for his discernment, you know, and it's like, you know, he wants, if he sees something in you, a little shift or a little something, then he's on it, you know, and I just thank God for that. I've never in my life had a pastor, aside from Brother Tony, Brother Duff, whatever, but I've been under this ministry the longest, you know, and it's like, wow, sometimes when I even think about that. But I've never had a pastor who was so concerned. I mean, Brother, you know, Tony is, but I'm just saying, just when I think about or listen to other, you know, friends, pastors or whatever, you got to make an appointment. You got to do this, you got to do that, or you got to speak to this person before you can speak to the pastor. But it was always, if I called, it's like, hello, you know, and it was like, you know, and then I just, you know, tell him I need or whatever. But I just thank God for his life. I thank God, you know, how sometimes you think, okay, you're going to act, you see that, you see them, but he's just hold steady, keep your spirit right. You got to keep your spirit right, because it's so easy to want to respond. It's so easy to want to react or whatever. But I am just so even more so. It's like the need to rise. It's time to rise, saints. It's time to let go of whatever, you know. And it's like, I want to be easily entreated. I want to just step in line. Just step in line. And what Brother Kelly preached this morning is like so on time. And if we don't get it, you're going to be shaken off. You know, God is not playing. And it's like, I am so encouraged. My mind is focused. It's like I'm set for the defense of the gospel. Whatever I have to do, whatever I have to let go, I'm willing to do that. I am willing to do that by the grace of God. And I'm so encouraged to be a part of 140 West South Street Church of God. Need the mic, sis. Need the mic.
What happened that time? He's one of a kind.
Yes, he is.
And then I don't think there ever be one accident. And I love him, and I just appreciate how, as a young girl, I was 19 when I came up to Jackson. I had never heard anything as far as the gospel. I was preaching. I just appreciate how he preached the gospel, and I was able to embrace it. You'll just continue.
I thank the Lord for my salvation, and thank the Lord that Pastor Saints was still here when I came back to the Lord in 2006. I thank the Lord for I came to Jackson in 1975. I don't know if most saints know that I came from Chicago, and I thank the Lord how this ministry was different, you know, from the Chicago ministry. And I thank the Lord that I was able to be under Brother Hampton all those years. And I wanted to just bring out how I was real sick during my pregnancies with my children. And I had eczema real bad. And how the pastor was always there for me as well as praying for me and the saints. And then one of my children, Tiffany, she had the psoriasis. I think it was psoriasis. I'm not sure what it was. But I think it was psoriasis in her head real bad. And I thank the Lord how Brother Hampton and the saints prayed for my daughter. And I thank the Lord how God healed it. She was about, I would say 10 months old, 10 months or 11. But since she had it really, really bad, it was just, her head was just a mess, you know, with the sores and the running and we had to tie her hands down at night when she slept in her baby bed because she was always trying to dig into it and scratch it. And I thank the Lord how God healed her of that. Amen. And I actually it. But while I was out here in the world, the Lord, I had a daughter, my oldest daughter died. And I lost my oldest daughter. And I just about lost my mind. And I couldn't take it because I knew I was a backslider. And I should have been saved. thank God for the compassion and the mercy of the pastor. And he did the eulogy, I believe. But what I wanted to bring out was I couldn't take seeing my daughter in the morgue. I couldn't take going to the funeral home. I couldn't face it. So it was time for us to have the wake. I hadn't seen her. I didn't go to the funeral home. I didn't dress her. I didn't do anything. And I had others that would help me to do it because it was too much for my mind. And I thank the Lord that I was falling apart and the enemy was trying to take my mind over with grief. And the pastor noticed it. He saw it. And for me, he raised his hands, and he put his hands on my head.
Come on.
And he prayed for me and he rebuked that thing.
My God.
Because I would have lost my mind. And I was able to deal with her death because it was too much for me. And I just thank God that the Lord brought me back home in 2006, and I thank the family. Thank you all for letting us have your dad for all those years, letting us as saints. You know, you had to loan us your father because she was, I know that, you know, you all also missed a lot of picnics or outings with your dad. And so I thank you for letting us have your father. We thank God for Brother Hampton. We loved him and we thank him for all that he meant to us as a congregation.
Amen.
I want to thank the Lord for Brother Hampton. I came here in 1987, and in our day, back in the day, the church was moving. The church was moving fast, and it seemed like we lived on the van or on someone's floor or somewhere, just traveling all over the world, just going. But I know when I first got saved, before I got saved, I had cancer in my body. And I had a fast, rapid cancer. This bad cancer. And I went to the doctor and had a test taken, and they told me that the doctor, when I remember going in the doctor's office when they called me, and I'm a young lady. And I remember going in the doctor's office, and the doctor came in and he sat down. And I remember the table was laying there, and he rolled up a chair, and he told me that what was going on in my body. And so he said, well, this is what's going to happen. This time I'm 28 years old. And I remember begging that doctor. I hadn't came in contact with God yet. I heard about God, heard Rodman's testimony, and Sister Coretta. I was 19 when I lived next door to Sister Coretta. She lived at one end of the building, I lived at the other end of the building. And Sister Walker, she would babysit Shalonda and Michael when I was working, so I'm 19 then. So God kept my path open to tell me about God, to show me God, I'm going to come back to the cancer part, but I have to bring you to this point. I remember when I was 19, I I just had a little mic on. I already had Shalonda and had a little mic on. Like I said, Sister Greta, we live on Burberry Drive, and I remember her saying, you know, we're gonna have a street meeting tonight. And I was so excited because I watched her life. I didn't know I was watching her life, but I watched her life. And I remember her saying, we're gonna have a street meeting tonight. Come out, you know. And I remember the saints coming out, and my husband, Michael, he wouldn't let me come out to the street meeting. He didn't want me to have anything to do with his church, with these people. So I didn't come out. So anyway, that path, but God kept the path open. Okay, now we at the doctor's office, this 10 years later. And I remember telling the doctor, please don't let me die. And he said, I'm gonna do everything in my power that you don't die. So I let them do this thing, it's called a carbonization or something, where they were going to freeze the area and freeze the cells and all this kind of thing. So for 2 years, I had to come back to the doctor every 6 months. So the first time I came back, the cancer was gone. It was gone. So now, about 3 or 4 months later, my brother Robert gets killed. Well, first let me tell about Brian. Brian said, take me back to the day. Brian got saved. And he was in the streets. He was bad in the streets. I'm talking about bad in the streets. And I saw God clean him up. I saw God do something for him that was totally impossible to do. Then about 3 months later, God's still working. He's kind of getting me there. So about 3 months later, my brother Robert got shot and killed. But just a little bit before that, Sister Linda had came on my job. He was after me. God was after me. But I didn't know all this stuff that's going on. But Linda came to the job just before Robert got killed. And I remember asking her all these questions, and you all know what she said, and we don't have to go there again. But anyway, still get saved. So now Robert, he gets killed. I'm not knowing to get saved. I'm not knowing I don't know what's going on in my life right now. I don't understand all this stuff. Because I wasn't brought up in church. I'm not like you children here. So I don't know what's going on. So then Robert gets killed, and I remember going to the window, and I was looking up in the sky, and I said, I gotta get to God. I gotta get to God. I don't know what I mean. I don't know what's going on here, but I gotta get to God. So then I get saved. Short after that, I'm getting saved, probably a little short time after that. So now I get saved, and that was on a Sunday. And that Monday, because Robin's testimony about that baby being born, that did something to my faith. And I remember something with Sister Greta. She got really sick one time, and all the things that came to her house. That did something to my faith. So I get saved, and the next day after I get saved, the doctor's office called. I got saved on Sunday. Monday morning, the doctor's office called and said, your cancer is back. We need to start the radiation. We need to start all this stuff. Now I call Brahampton. I said, Brahampton, I don't know him. I know all the stuff that's going on, everything said in the community, all the miracles. You just know everything at this point. And I said, Brahampton, yeah, I said, the doctor's office told me yada, yada, yada. And so the first thing he asked me, he said, can you believe God? I said, yeah, I can believe God. He said, meet me at the church. Meet me at the church. And I remember coming to the church that day. And coming in, and Brother Hunt and Brother Kane was there. And I sat down. And, he wants to tell you, he wants you to tell him the situation or whatever. Told him what was going on. He said, can you believe God? I said, I can believe God. That was 37 years ago. That cancer's never been in my body again. That was 37 years ago. From then on and on and on, it was miracle after miracle in my life. It's just been one miracle after the other. One miracle after the other. But through each situation, when I would call him, he would tell me, can you believe God? I've seen God do everything. I remember Tiny at the thing. She was down. She was down for the count. They gathered around the bed. This is before I got saved. God just set me up to show me the power of God. That's why I can believe God for what I saw. Tiny, she was out unconscious. Brother Henry was in the meeting. The ministry came to our house. They laid hands on my sister. And God raised her right before my face. The paramedics left her there. They left her there. They couldn't bring her to. But when the saints pulled in, they rallied around the bed. She come up out of it. I saw one miracle after the other after the other. Hampton has always been there. He buried my mom. He buried my dad. He buried my brother Danny. He's been there for my family. I don't know what to say. Like I said, we slept on floors. That's what we lived. When the saints had a problem, we young come. We go 3, 4, 5 days fast like it wasn't nothing. Nothing. And we begged it till God brought you out. This is what I saw in my years of salvation. This is what I saw. I've never seen one situation, and I'm not talking. This is fact that God didn't pull us out of. The other day, I know it's a sad moment. It's a bittersweet moment for us. It's a bittersweet moment for us. But the other day, when we got the call, Brandon was gone. I was so excited. That might sound cruel, but I was excited because he made it. He fought. He fought. He fought. He went against the odds. He went against people in our community. You hear so many people, children even born. They dogged him. He walked in the store and called him Jim Jones. But he kept going. His children had to go to school and be tortured. But he kept going. The man is a valuable soldier. I was so excited. In my mind, I felt like this. The Lord told the angel, go get him. Go get him. So the angels came down. Pastor Hampton, we're going to take you in today. So they come to get him. Then I can hear Sister Willis say, and the angels step aside when the door is open wide. Pastor Hampton is coming. Pastor Hampton is here. And you can hear Jesus say, well done, you good and faithful one. But Hampton was faithful. He stuck with us. Our husband turned against us. We didn't have nowhere to live. We didn't have money. We had to pray it down.